Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. This week in our weekly lesson, we've been talking about the television license. If you own a TV here in the UK, you must also own a license for it. And we've been talking about how the government enforces that, how they protect the rule and force us to pay. It's very interesting. Now, speaking of television, a few of you have written to me and have asked me in lessons if I could tell you what I'm currently watching on TV. Well, we can certainly cover that. But before we do that, I want to talk about a particular TV personality who died in the last few days. For those of you who like sports, you might know the name Geoff Capes. He was Britain's strongest man back in the 1970s and 80s when strength was seen as something which was a desirable quality, especially physical strength. And there's a picture here of him pulling a truck. There's a cable attached to his back, and the other end of the cable is attached to a truck, and he's pulling it. And I think the truck is loaded with concrete on the back as well. So yes, he's unfortunately passed away, and he was a very famous TV personality here in the 70s and 80s. Let's have a read at what this newspaper report tells us about Geoff Capes. And this is from The Guardian, Thursday, the 24th of October, which is today. So it says here, Geoff Capes, who competed for Great Britain in the shot put, that's those competitions at the Olympic Games, where you have little metal balls and you have to throw them as far as you can. It says here, Geoff Capes, who competed for Great Britain in the shot put at 3 Olympic Games, won 2 Commonwealth titles and twice won the world's strongest man competition, has died, age 75. A family statement said the family of Geoffrey Capes would like to announce his sad passing today, 23rd of October, Britain's finest shot putter and twice world's strongest man. Cape was at the height of his sporting prowess in the 1970s, competing in the Great Britain team for 11 years and racking up the largest number of athletic scores in history for his country. Now, we'll need to go back to that in a moment and talk about some of those phrases. It says here, he became a household name after his track and field career was over, and then he starred in some TV shows and winning the world's strongest man in 1983 and 1985. Then it talks about his Olympic Games history, and there's many pictures of him here, and it says here, the strong man was not limited in his pursuits by brawn and muscle, as the other world title he held was the unexpected one of breeding budgies. Okay, let me just say that again. So he wasn't only famous for his muscle, his brawn and strength, he also loved budgies, the bird, and he was well known for breeding those. It's really interesting, isn't it? The world's strongest man, and in his free time, he breeds little birds, budgies. Well, unfortunately, he's passed away. That's very, very sad. Yeah, I remember him. He was very famous in the 1970s and 80s. I think at that point, when I was a child, he was simply a TV personality, but a very famous one, a very famous one. So, first of all, let's talk about that word prowess, which means someone who's famous in their field. As I was reading, it says Capes was at the height of his sporting prowess in the 1970s, competing in the Great Britain team for 11 years and racking up the largest number of athletic scores. If you rack up, it's a way of counting people's scores with something. For example, if I, let's say, for example, won many awards, okay, for sport. Yeah. If I won many awards for sport, I could say I've racked up many awards. Okay, so it's about something that you've accumulated. Okay, it's typically a score or an amount. So I could say, for example, I've racked up almost 1,000 podcasts since I started recording them some years ago. So that is a good example of racking something up. So he racked up lots of awards, and that's what it says here. So that's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, he's very famous. His name is very famous here. And yeah, the other thing that it mentions here is that he wasn't only famous for his brawn and his competitiveness. And I just wanted to mention what's meant here by brawn. When we talk about brawn, we talk about physical strength and big muscles. Okay, so it's often used as a way of referring to men who supposedly are beautiful. Okay, so you hear many women saying, "Oh, I like a bit of brawn." It means a big man with a lot of muscles. Um, for example, she said she preferred brawn to brains, so she preferred some physical strength to someone who is intelligent. Apparently, it's also a word which describes a particular bit of pork, although I've never heard of that before, I have to say. Um, when I was growing up, um, there was a saying that our parents used to say that women at school should respect brains, not brawn. So there we are. It's very important for you to understand how to use this. Generally speaking, I think when we use the word brawn, we're referring to dark-haired people or people who are a little bit darker. I don't know why, but we have a stereotype here that dark people, Mediterranean-looking people, black people, Arab people are somehow physically stronger or are more confident. And so generally, we refer to those kinds of traits as being brawny, more confident, bigger, physical. I think it's just a stereotype, though. I mean, there is a picture here of Geoff Capes. He's dark-haired with a beard. Yeah, so I don't really know where that comes from. I think it's just from our history, because of course historically British people are more northern, we're more fair coloured, aren't we? But anyway, Very, very interesting. So that's the word brawn. So many women like a bit of brawn, as they would say, someone who's physically strong, and of course, dark, which is, I suppose, a dominant color anyway. Right, so you want to know what I'm listening to or watching on TV? Okay, so at the moment, I'm watching a TV show called Mom, which is very good. It's an American TV show about a mother and a daughter, and they both attend Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a comedy, okay, although it touches upon a very serious emotive subject. And both of these women are alcoholics, and this is a rather dark comedy about their lives, about how they struggle being alcoholics, about their past lives. It's very well made, and it's certainly very funny about their daily challenges because neither of them have any money, so they're living together and they don't always get on so well, and how alcohol features in their life and they can't seem to get away from it, and how they deal with that kind of insanity of thinking. It's glamorized, but it brings home a very important point about how much people drink and members of Alcoholics Anonymous, how the meetings work. It's very, very good. It shows a nice, lighter, brighter side of an everyday problem of addiction. It is very, very funny, especially if you like dark humor. It's called Mom, and you can find it on Disney. Although I do know that's not available in the Spanish Disney, but it's also on Max or I think HBO. Mom, and the spelling is the American spelling, which is MOM, not MUM, which is British. So I'm watching that. What else do I usually watch? Well, I've just finished watching The Mentalist, which is about a very intuitive guy who works for the California Bureau of Investigation and how he helps them solve crimes. He's almost psychic, but he doesn't like that word. Another one I like to watch is Monk, who's a guy who suffers from, I don't know how you would describe it, some kind of phobia about dirt, touching things, people. He has all kinds of hang ups, as we would say in the UK. And he also is working for the local police force. And it's about how his disability actually helps him to solve the crimes. It's very interesting, very interesting. So I'm watching that as well. With regards to podcasts, well, I have loads on my feed. I just checked here before I logged in, and probably one of the main ones would be yeah, this one's really funny. It's called Nemo the Mormon, and the reason why I like this guy is because he speaks very well. He has a lovely accent. If you want to shadow with someone British who speaks well, Nemo the Mormon's podcast is lovely. He's a very, very well spoken, well educated boy from Oxford or that area. And the podcast is that he started to make this podcast by talking about all the things that he doesn't agree with in the Mormon church, because this guy is a Mormon. But of course, the church didn't like that, and eventually they excommunicated him, they kicked him out, and he doesn't really understand the connection there. He's a bit confused. He's saying, well, why would they do that to me? Well, maybe because he spent his career so far criticizing them. And of course, that's what happens when you go public criticizing your church or employer or whatever, they will get their revenge. But he he seems to be kind of in denial. His attitude is, well, it's just what happens when you bring forward or bring out the dark side of the church because they're doing things that they shouldn't be. Yeah, but even so, you criticize them, of course, they're going to kick you out. That's what happens. So he shouldn't be surprised at that. It's very funny. I mean, his drama about leaving his church is very funny because there are people that he interviews and who interview him who obviously care a lot about this subject, which for us looks rather trivial because we don't really care. But he's a lovely speaker, so I can recommend that one if you have some patience. But beautiful, beautiful speaker, beautiful speaker. Who else do I have here on my YouTube feed? Let me just have a little look. Yeah, I've been watching the entire series of Prisoner Cell Block H, which is an Australian prison TV series. It's about a women's prison. They've remade it recently and called it Wentworth. You might know that one, but the original, which was done in the late 70s, early 80s, was called Prisoner Cell Block H, and it's very good. And it's all on YouTube. Really trashy by today's standards. But if you have some patience and you like drama, all 600 episodes are online. So I watch that on YouTube as well. That keeps me busy. That's on YouTube. Um, yeah, I just want to say that that Nemo the Mormon thing is actually on YouTube, and all the podcasts, as I mentioned them and will mention them, are actually YouTube things, okay? They're YouTube clips. I'm using the word podcasts, I think, because, of course, my podcast is on YouTube, but perhaps the best term to use is vodcast instead of podcast. Yeah, that's probably the main ones that I'm watching at the moment. So very interesting, lots of things there. And I'll keep you updated in the future with things that I'm watching. So that's Mom from Disney, or I think Max, HBO. Also, Nemo the Mormon is on YouTube. I said podcast, but it's actually a video clip he does. Also, Prisoner Cell Block H is a YouTube production as well. And when I'm not watching that, I usually watch Bewitched, which is a 1960s TV show about a man married to a woman with supernatural powers. I like that because the mother-in-law is completely evil and she's always threatening to turn the poor man into an animal or into an inanimate object using her powers, and it plays a lot on this theme of the mother-in-law disliking the son-in-law. There we are. So that's a few things for you to watch. Yeah, and it's been a very interesting week talking about the TV license. And I'll be back tomorrow, of course, with our final podcast of the week on the subject of TV license. And then, of course, the weekend, I'll probably be out and about. It's going to be Halloween this weekend. So I think there'll be some celebrations for that. The official night of Halloween isn't until the 31st, but there's parties most weekends now, as you know, Halloween is a bigger festival than Christmas now here in the UK. It's kind of like Christmas but without family. So I think that's why people like it, because nobody likes the stress of Christmas and the idea of family at Christmas time. We've kind of grown past that. I know for me personally, Christmas can be a very difficult time because you think of your parents, you think of siblings that you no longer are in touch with. It's a British thing. Yeah, we don't really do family well. So Halloween is the next best thing. It's the same as Christmas, but you can do it alone, which makes it special. That's it from me. See you soon. Bye.